and judging your spouse. That's what I talk about. The question I have today: do you understand your partner? Are you so judgmental on your spouse? Now, let me tell you the difference between understanding your spouse and judging your spouse. Now, number one, understanding your spouse is when you ask questions with a caring tone. Understanding your spouse is when you ask your spouse questions with a caring tone. What tone are you using when you ask your spouse something or questions? While judging your spouse is when you ask questions with an interrogative, suspicious tone. Understanding your spouse is when you ask a question to your spouse with a caring tone. While judging your spouse is when you ask questions with an interrogative, suspicious tone. What tone are you using when you are speaking to your spouse? What tone are you using? The tone that you use means everything. So understand your partner instead of being judgmental. Number two, understanding your spouse is when you use the information your spouse shares to better love him or her. You use the information, that's understanding your spouse. You use the information that your spouse is sharing with you to better love him or her. While judging your spouse is when you use the information to attack your spouse. When your spouse says something to you or her past, what that means is simple. Use that information to better your life, to better your love together. But don't use it to attack your spouse. That is being judgmental. Number three, understanding your spouse is when you make your spouse feel safe and covered. That is understanding your spouse. When you make your spouse feel safe and covered. While judging your spouse is when you make your spouse feel edgy. When you make your spouse feel edgy, that's being judging or judgmental. Number four, understanding your spouse is when your spouse tells you intimate details about his or her family, and you use that information to love and relate better with your in laws. While judging your spouse is when you look at your spouse and his family or her family differently because of their background. If your spouse says something about his or her family, that should not give you a reason to look them differently or see them differently. Instead, that information should be used positively. How? By knowing how to relate with your in laws. Number five, understanding your spouse is when your spouse can tell you areas in life he or she is struggling with and you help. While judging your spouse is when you mock and negatively change how you treat your spouse because of his or her struggles. Understanding your spouse is when your spouse can tell you areas in life she is or he is struggling with, and you, as a spouse or a partner, try to help. Judging your spouse is when you mock and negatively change how you treat your spouse because of her or his struggles. So the information that is being shared to you, use it positively instead of negatively. Number six, understanding your spouse is when you pray for your spouse when he or she is spiritually weak. That is how you understand your spouse. When you pray for your spouse and when you try to uplift your spouse when they are weak spiritually. Judging your spouse is making your spouse feel like a mini devil just because he or she doesn't play like you. Number 7, understanding your spouse is seeking to hear your spouse out before jumping into conclusions. Judging your spouse is forming an opinion before you have all the facts. Don't jump into conclusions before you get all the facts or the details. You have to hear and listen fully to your spouse to understand her or him. Number 8, understanding your spouse is preserving the secrets your spouse shares in confidence. If your spouse shares some information or some information about her or his or about her family or his family in confidence, you need to keep that secret because it is between the two of you. While judging your spouse is exposing your spouse to your friends and the family. Don't expose your spouse to your family and friends. Marriage needs more understanding and less judging. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are in a relationship, let's spend more time understanding one another than judging them or condemning them. Some people, you may share information with them, and they will turn around, use that information against you, or to mock you, or to insult you. There are some, when a spouse, or your partner, or your boyfriend or girlfriend shares some information about his or her family, they don't tell you that information so that you can use it against them or use it against their family background. All they're trying to do is to tell you how to relate with your in laws, ladies and gentlemen. Use that information positively instead of using negative energy towards your spouse. You are not competitors, but partners who work together as a team to achieve something that is based on the two of you. If the two of you can work together, you'll accomplish more than working as an individual. When you start seeing your spouse as a competitor, then you've lost it. The moment you start seeing your partner as a teammate, a soulmate, somebody that you work together tirelessly to achieve a certain goal in life, to achieve success, to make your life and your marriage and your relationship work effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a few examples that I can give you today about how the differences between understanding your partner and judging your partner. Let's try to understand our partners more than we judge them. Now, what we do when we condemn them, we are telling them, don't give us any more details about you. And some people will not even tell you the areas that they are struggling with in life, or they will not tell you the areas where they suffered miserably when growing up, because you will carry the same information and use it against them. And hence, you'll kill self esteem of your spouse. And your marriage will not work successful, will not be successful. You will not enjoy your marriage. Marriage is to be enjoyed, not to be just tolerated. Now, marriage is supposed to be enjoyed. And if you are not enjoying your marriage, my brother, my sister, take more time to understand your partner or your spouse more than you charge them. Understanding your partner is more important than judging them because you need to nurture each other. You need to build one another. You need to uplift each other. We need to pray for one another. You know, I sometimes wonder why some people feel like belittling your spouse is one way of achieving, or putting your spouse down is one way of achieving. Hell no, it's not. All you need to do is we need to work as a team and lift one another's spirits, be it spiritually, be it mentally, be it financially. We need to work together as a team, ladies and gentlemen, if we need to achieve more or if we need to go or move somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel. My YouTube name, it is Samongoro. I'll leave you at that and just go back and search the characteristics of your relationship. Are you judgmental, or you are a man or a woman who understands or who is trying to understand your spouse, your girlfriend, your fiance, your boyfriend? Are you there to understand them, or you are there to judge them? Hence, you will make them not to give you in details. Anything that your spouse wants you to improve, when you use the information they tell you in a very judgmental way, all you are doing is telling them, don't tell me more, because I will use it against you. Hence, your spouse will be suffering inward without telling you what they are going through. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, God bless you and bye bye.